Ah yes, Tower Troops, one of the most recent additions to Clash Royale, although my statement won't be correct for all the time. Basically, the Princess Tower, but each one with their pros and cons. So far, we have 4 of them. These include the Princess, the Dagger Duchess, the Cannoneer, and the Royal Chef. The Tower Troop update was in the 13th of December 2023, and by far it is one of the biggest changes that's ever happened to Clash Royale. However, recently it became obvious that there was something going on, like a cycle that each one of those Tower Troops went through, like a dilemma for Supercell. And to find out this dilemma, we'll be going through the history of each one of those cards, starting off with the default and common one, the Princess Tower, with a hit speed of 0.8 seconds, a range of 7.5 tiles, targets of course are in ground and common, and has the highest hit points of any Tower Troop. In the same day of the Tower Troop update, her name was changed from Princess Tower to the Tower Princess. And the most impressive part about her is that she hasn't received a single balance change ever since the game soft launched on January 1st, 2016. Which only proves how balanced of a Tower Troop she is. I mean, duh, she's Daddy's girl, so what could be wrong about her? Next up, we have the Cannoneer, released exactly 8 years after the Princess Tower, who had an early access bundle of $14 to max him out, and an additional 35,000 coins. Having the slowest hit speed, 2.4 seconds, same first hit speed as the Tower Princess, and the range of 0.5, and he's an epic. On the other hand, despite his slow hit speed, he has the highest damage. However, before that, he didn't have the same sight range as the Tower Princess, and at the 14th, 5th of 2024, his damage was decreased by 5%. 5 months later, he would get his damage again decreased by 5%, and the first attack time interval nerfed to 0.8 seconds from 0.6. Though he was quite strong on release, he wasn't very overpowered, because his advantage is being able to counter beatdown decks, but being very sensitive to swarms, which introduced this whole archetype of decks shaped around the Tower Troops. The only exception being the Princess Tower because of her balanced state. Then we have the Dagger Duchess, released exactly 4 months after the Cannoneer, with the fastest hit speed of 0.45 seconds, same range, projectile speed of 1000, I have no idea why they had to specify that, and of course air and ground. Imagine a Tower Troop that could only hit ground or air. What made her legendary is the fact that she had 8 daggers, and each dagger would charge in 0.9 seconds, aka she had ammo. Now she has the lowest hit points, but that wasn't the case on her release. In fact, her first balance stage was 2 weeks after her release, where her hit points were decreased by a whopping 15.8%. She had 200 more HP than the Tower Princess. A month later, her damage would get decreased by an eye-watering 27%, and the dagger cooldown would be reduced to 0.8 seconds from 1.2. She literally took half the Princess' health when her armor bar was out. And guess what? Half a month later, she'd get a attack time interval nerf from 0.35 to 0.45, and the cooldown from 0.8 to 0.9. All of this shows how broken she was. And unlike the Cannoneer, she had no cons, and Clash Royale was aware of her brokenness with this early access bundle. $63! You can buy an entire game with that! Though there were cheaper offers, but still, this showed how broken she was. Somehow she became free, which did explain her use rate of 91%! The Princess Tower and Cannoneer were humiliated in front of such a menace. And with the balance changes that were previously mentioned, she basically died, turning it to this niche Tower Troop whose only purpose was to counter cycle decks. Though lately she received a buff to her projectile speed from 600 to 1000, although this has made her better, but not really. Now we move to the last one, the Royal Chef, released on the 16th of December 2024. And released with an early access bundle, of course. The Royal Chef had 100 less hit points than the Tower Princess, dealt pretty much same damage, a slower hit speed of 0.9, same range, but what made him special is that he would make pancakes every 50 to 25 seconds, except to troops that had 20% health or less. These pancakes were like the mirror in terms of upgrading, and created some funny situations like the level 99 P.E.K.K.A. The most remarkable glitch was with Clone, which made cloned troops that were upgraded immortal. Another glitch involved cards like Lava Hound, Elixir Golem, anything that would split and create more troops on death. If the pancake was sent right before that troop would die, those little versions of the card would not even appear. He managed to reach an impressive use rate of 61%, though I will never understand the overreaction of the community. Like many posts, videos with very clickbaity titles about the Royal Chef being quote unquote broken really made Supercell go hard with the nerfs. In February 2025, his cooking time was reduced by 33%, his hit speed by 11%, the buff threshold from 20% to 33%, and now he'd get nerfed whenever a tower was destroyed. With this harsh list of nerfs was a very long description about the reason why they did those specific nerfs, and no matter how long they tried to convince me, it was still too much. This marked the end of the Royal Chef, with many people agreeing that the nerfs were a bit too harsh. Thus, we finished the history of each one of those tower troops. Now, if you noticed something, you noticed the same scenario going on over and over again. The tower troop gets released with an early access bundle, depending on their power, shakes Clash Royale social media, then gets nerfed to oblivion. Now, you might tell me, but dude, this happens every time with early access broken cards like Goblin Machine or etc. What are you on about? Well, I'm gonna need to remind you that everyone comes back to the princess after the broken tower troop gets nerfed. She always emerges victorious no matter the brokenness of the tower troop. Though I already mentioned she's daddy's girl, so that makes sense. But does every tower troop have to have a prime on its release, then get nerfed and become unusable only in a niche decks? And the whole tower troop update was pretty controversial, as some people thought it brought a fresh, new breath of air to the game, making it all new. Others said it's just another pay-to-win mechanic. The truth is that both sides are correct. Having tower troops and not always daddy's girl as the tower troop made the whole game new, feel fresh. New decks suddenly became, usable, like Splash Yard or whatever with Cannoneer, I guess. I have no idea. And on the other side, the excessive early access offers that are super costly, and the brokenness of the tower troop really makes it just a pay-to-win mechanic. As a solution to this whole dilemma and madness, Supercell should at least not make the tower troops broken, because a broken card may shift the meta around it. A broken deck makes it very usable and counters become super viable, but a broken tower troop makes some deck archetypes like beat down, in case of the dagger duchess, super viable and probably the only viable option, because your average cycle deck becomes weak in front of this mad duchess. One thing that makes the princess tower balanced and not really shape decks around it is the fact that it pretty much does all what you want. Oh, facing a cycle deck, quick arrows that don't deal much damage. Beat down, you may need to support it, but sure. Unlike Cannoneer or Dagger Duchess, stuff like that, they're very good in one task and absolutely horrible at the other. Which really shows why people tend to go back to the princess after the new cash grab tower troop has been killed. I mean, what's the point of making a tower troop if you're just gonna kill it at the end and let daddy's girl, the default, the common, be viable at the very end? In conclusion, Supercell will definitely not listen to what I'm saying. They will keep on pumping new cards, new broken things, unbalanced tower troops, and repeat the same scenario. I did like the whole concept of tower troops bringing variety to the game, but killing them at the end won't really make the game, diverse, unless there's some dominant beat down or cycle deck that forces you to either pick Cannoneer or Dagger Duchess, and this will mostly make it harder for the Royal Chef to find himself a place in any sort of meta. And yep, now goodbye.